They say family never turns its back on you. Well, let me tell you something. Family can turn faster than you blink when lies start flying. My name is Margaret Thornton. Before we go any further, drop a comment and tell me what time you started watching. Because what happened to me on this cold Tuesday morning changed everything I thought I knew about my own child. I never saw it coming. Not the anger, not the violence. Not in the kitchen where I baked birthday cakes for 23 years. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like and subscribe. The first time her hand hit my face, I thought I imagined it. I was standing near the refrigerator holding a glass of water, then smack. Her hand came so fast the water spilled all over the floor. My head jerked sideways. Everything went quiet for 1 second. Then the second hit came harder. It burned like someone pressed hot iron against my cheek. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there frozen looking at this woman who married my son 3 years ago. The woman who smiled at our wedding photos. She wasn't saying sorry. She wasn't shaking or scared. She looked like she won something. Then she opened her mouth and said words that made my stomach drop. Oliver, she attacked me. The lie came out so smooth, like honey dripping from a spoon. She practiced this. I thought Oliver, my son, came running from upstairs. His face already angry before he even saw what happened. You put your hands on my wife, he said, staring at me like I was a stranger. I opened my mouth but no sound came. Fear does that sometimes. It locks your throat shut. Oliver, I whispered finally. I never touched her. Look at my face. But he didn't look. He looked at her instead. Fiona was holding her arm like it hurt, crying fake tears that didn't even make her eyes red. His jaw got tight. A vein popped out on his forehead. Really, Mum, he said coldly. That's when I knew. He already made his choice before hearing my side. Earlier that week, I had made vegetable soup without asking first. Oliver walked into the kitchen, lifted the pot lid, and snapped at me. Mum, stop cooking things nobody asked for, he said, laughing. But his eyes weren't smiling. I should have paid attention then. Small warnings become big problems when you ignore them. Fiona moved closer to him now, putting her head on his chest. The same chest I used to hug when he had bad dreams as a little boy. She always disrespects me, she said, fake crying louder. Always. That word hit me harder than both slaps combined. It went straight into my heart and twisted. Oliver breathed in deep, then looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. Cold eyes, tired eyes, annoyed eyes. Say sorry to her, he said flatly. Or get out of my house. My house. The house where his father and I planted roses in the front garden. The house where I scrubbed floors on my knees. The house where I stayed after burying the love of my life. If you're finding this story powerful, please like and subscribe. I stared at my son. I memorized his face because the boy I raised was gone. Someone else stood there now. I didn't say sorry not because I'm stubborn, but because something inside me broke open, and you can't fix that kind of break with words. I picked up my coat, grabbed my old handbag, walked past both of them. Nobody stopped me. Nobody called my name. The cold air outside hit me like a punch. Sharp and mean and real. When I heard the door lock behind me click, I realized something awful. I walked out with almost nothing. Just my heartbeat pounding in my ears and shame burning my face. And I had no clue where to go next. The door closing sounded like the end of something. I didn't look back. If I looked back at that house, the house with a blue letterbox my husband painted, I knew I would fall apart right there on the steps. The street looked strange, like I stepped into a different town. Even though I lived here for decades, my feet moved on their own. Down the steps, crossed the drive, past the small garden I watered every morning. The afternoon sun was fading, making everything look gray and sad. Car drove past slowly. The driver didn't look at me. A bird flew overhead without making a sound. Even the street light took forever to turn on, like it wasn't sure I deserved to see in the dark. My breath made little clouds in the cold air. I walked past the maple tree we planted when Oliver turned 5. Past the crack in the pavement my husband always said he'd fix someday. past the neighbor's fence that needed painting. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stand outside that house staring at a door that locked me out. When I reached the corner where the small church sits, my legs started shaking. There was a stone bench under the old oak tree. Its branches hung low and tired, like they understood what it felt like to carry heavy things. I sat down slowly. My knees hurt more from shock than cold. This wasn't about being homeless. I've lived through hard times before, but being thrown out by your own child, that makes the air feel colder than any winter storm. Oliver looked through me earlier. Not around me, not past me, through me. Like I was invisible, like I was nothing. That kind of look. That's how strangers look at rubbish on the street. The wind picked up and blew my scarf loose. I pulled it tight around my neck and forced myself to breathe slower. A lorry rumbled by with loud music shaking the ground. But even that noise couldn't cover the pain growing in my chest. Inside that pain lived a memory I tried to forget. 2 months ago, Oliver and Fiona had friends over for dinner. I walked toward the dining room carrying a tray of fresh biscuits I baked. I wasn't trying to bother anyone. I just wanted to share something warm. Grandmothers do that. We give. Oliver turned to me with a weird smile and said, "Mum, don't come out when we have company. It's embarrassing." I laughed it off. I waved my hand like it was nothing. Said something like, "Boy, hush." But there was a sting in my chest that stayed. I ignored it then. Maybe I shouldn't have. Please like and subscribe if this story is resonating with you. The street light finally came on, making my shadow stretch long and thin across the pavement. I looked at that shadow and thought, how does a woman with my strength end up looking so small? I opened my handbag not because I expected money inside, but because I needed something to do with my hands, something to stop them from shaking. Maybe I'd find a tissue, maybe a mint, something to prove I still had control over something. Inside I found loose change, an old shopping list, and the tiny picture of William I'd always kept tucked in the bottom. I touched his face softly with one finger and closed my eyes. "I hope you're watching," I whispered to him. "Because I don't know how to start over at my age." My fingers searched deeper, moving past receipts and a broken pen. Then I felt something smooth and flat, plastic, cold. Pulled it out. Bank card, old and worn at the edges. The same card William gave me years ago and said, "For emergencies, Margaret. Only use this when you really need it." I stared at it, holding my breath. If this wasn't an emergency, nothing was. And right there, sitting on that cold bench, everything started to change. I barely closed my eyes that night. I sat on that hard bench until the sky turned from black to light purple, watching cars pass and people walk by without seeing me. By morning, my stomach hurt in that deep, empty way that comes from not eating. I've been hungry before, but I never went hungry while my son slept warm in a bed. The card sat in my hand like a question I was scared to ask. William put it in my palm years ago and said, "Emergencies only, Margaret. You use this when things get bad." I used to joke with him. "You think I can't take care of myself?" And he'd smile that soft smile. This was the first time I ever had to use it. If you're still with me, please like and subscribe to see what happens next. The bank opened at 9 o'clock. At 8:30, I stood across the street, hugging my coat closer, trying to stop my hands from shaking. Hunger mixed with shame and made every step feel harder. When the doors unlocked, I walked inside fast, hoping nobody noticed how I looked. My hair was messy from sleeping sitting up. My clothes were wrinkled. My eyes felt heavy and sad. I stood to the side, letting other people go first. They walked like they belonged there, like they had important business and full bank accounts. I felt like I was taking up space I didn't deserve. A young lady behind the counter waved me forward. "Good morning, ma'am," she said kindly. "How can I help you today?" I put the card on the counter. My voice came out tiny. "I need to see if there's a little bit of money in here. Just enough for some food." Her eyes looked at mine, then at the card. Something soft crossed her face, but she didn't ask questions. Thank God. I couldn't explain shame to a stranger before breakfast. She started typing on her computer. That empty feeling in my stomach got worse. Not from hunger this time, from the thought that I was standing here like this. I used to feed whole church gatherings with food I cooked myself. I used to bring meals to sick neighbors without being asked. I used to keep extra pies in my freezer just in case someone stopped by hungry. But life has a funny way of turning the person who gives into the person who needs when you least expect it. While she typed, another memory pushed into my mind, clear and cold. After Oliver got married, he started giving me what he called help money. Not much, just a little every other week. He said it was for groceries and small things. Mom, I never asked for it. He insisted, but slowly that changed. First he missed 1 week, then another. Then when I finally mentioned it, not angry, just asking, he said, "Mom, money is tight right now. Can you handle it?" Handle it. Like I hadn't been handling things long before he was born. After that, every time I asked, his voice got sharp. Mean almost. "Fiona handles the money now," he'd say. Or, "Mom, stop asking like you're broke." Somewhere along the way, my son stopped seeing me as someone to take care of and started seeing me as someone who bothered him. The lady's typing slowed down. Her back got straight. Her eyes locked on the screen. A small wrinkle appeared between her eyebrows. For 1 second I thought the card had nothing. £0. Expired. My whole body got ready to fall apart. "Is something wrong?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. She blinked once, then twice. Her mouth opened a little, like her breath got stuck on something she didn't expect to find. Then she looked up at me. Really looked at me. Her voice changed. "Ma'am," she said carefully, almost whispering. "Can you please have a seat?" My heart dropped into my stomach. Sit down. Why? The whole room seemed to spin. A new kind of fear crawled into my chest, slow and icy. I held on to the counter edge. She said it again, softer. "Ma'am, please just sit for a moment." I sat down like my knees forgot how to hold me up. She walked away from the counter and whispered something to a man in a suit. I couldn't hear them. People walked in and out behind me, shoes clicking on the floor, doors opening and closing. Life kept moving like mine wasn't falling to pieces right here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The story is about to take an incredible turn. She came back holding papers in her hand. Not one small slip. Whole stack of papers. That alone made my heart beat funny because nobody needs a stack of papers to tell you your balance is £3. "Ma'am," she said gently, pulling a chair next to mine instead of staying behind the counter. "I need you to look at something." The chair made a loud scraping sound in the quiet space. I forced my shaking hands to take the papers from her. First the numbers looked blurry. Hunger, tiredness, shame. They all mixed together and made my eyes burn. I blinked until the words got clear. Then I saw it. A number so big it didn't look real. A number that didn't belong in my life. A number that sat there untouched for years. My breath caught in my throat. For a second, the only thing I heard was blood rushing in my ears. The room felt far away, like I was watching myself from outside my body. My fingers pressed the paper, feeling how real it was. My husband's name, William Thornton, was still listed on the account as the main person. This was savings he kept secret, the safety blanket. He never talked about it again after giving me the card, like he wanted me to forget until I really truly needed it. And he was right. This was need. My lips moved, but no words came out. I didn't feel happy, not excited, not even relieved. What I felt was something soft breaking inside myself. A quiet, slow kind of breaking that came from knowing someone loved me enough to prepare for the day everything would go wrong. This wasn't just money. This was memory. This was protection. This was a promise my husband made while he was alive that found me now when I had nothing else to hold on to. I covered my face with my hand and bent my head forward as tears rolled down my cheeks, silent and heavy. They weren't pretty tears. They were the kind you only cry when you're so tired your whole body feels empty. The lady didn't talk. She didn't rush me. She didn't look at me with pity. She just slid a box of tissues closer and put a bottle of water next to me like she knew exactly how fragile this moment was. That small act of kindness. I hadn't felt anything like it in so long. "Take all the time you need," she whispered. I nodded, too choked up to speak. My whole life was spent giving, cooking, supporting, caring everyone else. And now here I was falling apart over a simple kindness from someone I just met. I wiped my face and tried to breathe steady. Slowly, I pushed the paper back toward her. "Is this really real?" She nodded. "Every penny. It's been sitting here waiting for you." Of course it had. William never wasted a single thing. She walked me over to her desk where she printed more papers, explaining gently what I could do and what steps I should think about. I listened quietly, taking in every word but saying nothing back. Not because I was rude, but because grief and gratitude were sitting on my chest at the same time, making it hard to breathe. When I finally stood up, the lady asked if I needed help calling a taxi or reaching someone. I told her no, I needed to be alone. For the first time in forever, alone didn't feel like punishment. I folded the paper carefully like it was something holy and put it inside my handbag. Each step toward the door felt stronger than the one before. When the cool morning air hit my face outside, something inside me changed. Not anger, not bitterness, but clarity. I looked down the empty street and whispered to myself, "The first thing I'm taking back is my respect." Like and subscribe if you want to see justice served. By lunchtime, I found myself standing outside a small brick building with a sign that said, "Law Office of Nigel Pembroke." The place wasn't fancy. No shiny floors, no big glass windows. Just an old building with curtains half closed and a small bell that rang when I opened the door. Felt right, quiet, human. Inside, a woman at the front desk smiled kindly and pointed me toward a small waiting area. My knees felt wobbly again. Not from fear this time, but from the weight of choosing to stand up for myself after years of staying quiet. I held my handbag close. My fingers pressed around the folded paper from the bank like it was proof that God still saw me. When the solicitor came out to meet me, he wasn't what I expected. He wasn't stiff or cold. He had that calm presence, the kind that makes a room feel safer just by being there. His voice was steady when he reached out his hand. "Mrs. Thornton, come on in. No rush. No rush." Those two words almost made me cry. His office smelled like old paper and fresh tea. A small lamp made warm light across a desk covered with neat folders. He pointed to a chair, then sat across from me, giving me all his attention without checking his phone or watch once. "So," he said gently, "tell me what brought you here." For a moment the room was silent. Not awkward silent, just heavy. Because this was the first time someone asked that question like they really cared about the answer. So I told him everything. I told him about the slaps, how sudden they were, how the second one stung worse than the first. I told him how Fiona lied before I even understood what happened. I told him about Oliver believing her right away. His face shutting down like he'd been waiting for a reason. I told him about walking out alone, hungry, ashamed, about finding William's card buried in my handbag, about going to the bank, hoping for £10 to buy food and finding something much bigger. As I talked, he didn't interrupt. He didn't lean back bored. He didn't stare at me with pity. His eyes stayed soft the longer I spoke. His hands stayed still, folded on top of a notebook he hadn't written in yet. When I got to the part about the house, the confusion, the papers I signed while crying over William's death, his eyebrows lifted a little. "Do you have any of those papers?" he asked. I nodded and reached into my handbag, pulling out the worn folder William left behind. Its edges were soft from being touched so many times. I never really read them fully. My son always said he'd handle everything. "Don't stress, Mum," he used to say, patting my shoulder with that fake smile. "Just sign what I bring you. I've got this." Back then, I trusted him without thinking. I was crying every day. I was tired and he was my child. I slid the folder across the desk to Mr. Pembroke. He put on his glasses and opened it carefully like it was something breakable. He didn't rush. He took his time reading each page, his eyes moving slowly across the words, stopping at names and dates and signatures. My heart thumped in my chest watching him. Minutes went by. The silence got deeper. His face got more serious with every page. Finally, he put the papers down, took off his glasses, and let out a long, slow breath. "Mrs. Thornton," he said, looking straight into my eyes. "Your son took advantage of your pain. Please like and subscribe to support this story." Mr. Pembroke didn't let me leave his office without help. After looking at the papers and hearing everything I went through, he closed the folder slowly, stood up and said, "Mrs. Thornton, you're not sleeping on another bench. Let me sort that out." His voice didn't leave room for me to argue. Not because he was bossy, but because he spoke with that quiet strength only people who've seen too much wrong can carry. Before I could say anything, he'd already rung a small inn a few streets over and paid for a room in my name. "You need sleep," he said simply. "The kind a woman can't get when she's scared of what's coming next." I swallowed hard. I hadn't slept without fear in years. Not since Fiona moved in and turned Oliver's heart into something I didn't know. I forgot what it felt like to rest without listening for mean voices or doors slamming. The inn wasn't fancy. A small building painted yellow with flower boxes under the windows. But when I walked inside and the warm air touched my face, something inside me relaxed. The man at the front desk smiled, a real smile, and gave me a key without judging me. My room smelled like soap and sunshine. There was a small bed with a soft blanket, a clean bathroom, and a window overlooking the street below. It wasn't home, but it was mine for tonight. I put my handbag down gently like it might break if I wasn't careful. For a moment, I just stood there breathing, letting the quiet wrap around me like a warm hug. No yelling, no heavy footsteps, no waiting for the next mean comment hidden inside a joke. Just silence. I walked into the bathroom and turned on the shower. Steam filled the room fast, covering the mirror. I stood under the hot water, letting it run through my hair, down my back, over my shoulders. It felt like the first real comfort I'd had in what felt like forever. At one point, I pressed my hand against the tile wall and let the water hide my tears. When I got out, I saw a menu on the table. I ordered simple food, cottage pie, mashed potatoes, carrots, nothing fancy. But when it arrived and I took the first bite, my throat got tight. I forgot what food tasted like when you weren't scared while eating it. Every bite soothed something small and hurting inside me. Parts of myself I didn't know were starving. After eating, I lay on the bed. The soft mattress held me up in a way that felt almost safe. My eyes got heavy, but I didn't fight it. For once, sleep didn't feel like giving up. Felt like permission. And when I finally drifted off, I had a dream that felt like memory and hope holding hands. William stood next to me in our old back garden, sunlight touching his face. He looked the way he did before sickness took him, strong eyes full of love. He wiped his hands on an old rag and turned toward me with that half smile that always made my worst days better. "You listening, Margaret?" he said. "Stand up for yourself. Don't let nobody walk on you no more." The words echoed, warm at first, then sharp, then firm. I reached for him, but he stepped back slowly, disappearing like smoke. I woke up with wet eyes. For the first time in forever, I didn't wake up to footsteps or loud voices. I woke up to peace. I sat up, breathed in deep, and put my hand over my heart. Something felt different inside me, like strength crawled back into places fear had emptied out. But peace doesn't last long when people like Fiona are around. My mobile buzzed on the table. Voice message. I hesitated, then pressed play. Her voice poured out. Annoyed, full of that attitude I knew too well. "So you're still playing victim? Come back and say sorry. If you're invested in Margaret's journey, please like and subscribe." The next morning, I walked into Mr. Pembroke's office with stronger steps than I'd had since that terrible Tuesday. It wasn't confidence yet. Not quite. But the shaking inside me had stopped. The fear hadn't disappeared. It just stepped to the side long enough for something else to rise up. Calm anger, controlled, focused. The kind of anger that doesn't shout, it plans. Mr. Pembroke greeted me with a nod and pointed to a chair. He'd already cleared his desk. A notebook sat open in front of him. The folder of papers laid neatly beside it. I looked through everything, he said, putting on his reading glasses. And we have a lot to talk about. I folded my hands in my lap to keep them steady. He picked up one of the forms I signed after William died, one I barely remembered holding, much less reading. The paper looked harmless. Harmless enough that any crying wife would have trusted her son when he said, "Just sign here, Mum." "This," he said, tapping the line where my name sat. "This is called power of attorney." I felt the words more than understood them. "What does that mean for me?" "It means," he said carefully, "your son got legal permission to make choices for you. Used the right way it's helpful, but used the wrong way." He stopped, choosing his words gently. "It lets someone move property, houses, money without needing you involved." A slow heat started wrapping around my chest. Not embarrassment, but waking up, realizing. So Oliver moved the house out from under me. "He didn't just move it," Mr. Pembroke said. "He transferred it completely out of your name into his." He leaned back, giving me space to take it in. "Using power of attorney wrong is serious. And if you signed without understanding, especially while grieving, it doesn't count." My jaw got tight. Grief was a fog I could barely see through. And my own child used that fog to blind me. While Mr. Pembroke talked, someone knocked on his door. The woman from the front desk stepped in quickly with a small folder. "These came from the bank," she said. "They marked some of the papers you asked for." Mr. Pembroke took the folder with a quiet thank you, then opened it. Inside were copies of Oliver's permission forms. Forms supposedly signed by me. Forms supposedly checked by the bank. But my eyes locked on the handwriting. Signature. It wasn't mine. Not even close. Mr. Pembroke saw my face change. "You see it too." "Oliver knows how I write," I whispered. "He knows it better than anyone." Mr. Pembroke nodded. "And that's exactly why this helps us." He flipped through the pages, his face getting sharper. "These mistakes combined with the timing and your emotional state after William died, paint a clear picture. A picture I was finally ready to look at without looking away. Shame, when it sits long enough, starts to change, thickens, hardens. It stops drowning you and starts building you up instead. The embarrassment that kept me quiet now felt like fuel. "Mrs. Thornton," he continued, "you weren't careless. You were grieving. There's a difference. And the law knows that." I swallowed the anger inside me, turning into something less wild and more focused. "What do we do now?" He took a long breath, then picked up the papers from the bank again. "I'll file complaints to challenge the transfer. We'll argue you didn't understand, fake signatures and misuse of power." He put the folder down and looked straight at me. "But before I file, I need to know if you're ready. It won't be easy. It won't be pretty. And Oliver will probably fight back hard." His words didn't make me scared. Not this time. Not anymore. I sat up straighter, feeling every piece of myself coming back bit by bit. "I'm ready," I said. "I've been quiet way too long." A small smile touched the corner of his mouth, not celebrating but respectful. "Good," he said softly. He gathered all the papers into one stack, lined up the edges, and tapped them on the desk like making a final decision. Then he looked up at me and said the words that made me hold my breath. "We have enough to start. Like and subscribe to see what happens in court." 3 days later, I sat across from Mr. Pembroke again. The morning sun came through the window in bright stripes. He'd rung earlier asking me to come in because more papers arrived. His voice carried something heavy that made my stomach hurt the whole way there. The second I walked into his office, I knew something was different. He didn't smile like usual. Instead, he pointed to the chair with a slow breath, like preparing me for bad news. "I want you to see these," he said, opening a new envelope marked with the bank's stamp. My hands stayed folded in my lap, waiting. He pulled out papers clipped together. Legal forms, banknotes, verification papers. Then he slid one page forward. "This," he said, tapping the top. This is the reason your son gave for taking full control of your house and money. I leaned closer. One sentence jumped out at me like a slap to the face. Mother shows signs of confusion and poor judgment after husband's death. My breath stopped. Not the house, not the money, not even the fake signature. This was the real wound. He said that about me, I whispered. Mr. Pembroke's face softened. It looks like he told the bank that you couldn't make good choices, that you were confused, not fit to handle your own property. The room blurred for a second as a memory came rushing back, not gently, but like something ripping through me. The days after William died were a fog I barely survived. I cried until my body shook. I forgot to eat for days. I sat on the floor with his shirts in my lap, smelling them until my chest hurt. People came by to check on me, saying quiet words that went in and out of my ears like wind. One afternoon, I heard Oliver talking to the neighbors across the street. "She's not herself right now," he said quietly. "Mum's not thinking clearly." At the time it didn't hurt. Sounded like worry. A son trying to explain grief he didn't understand. But seeing those words on paper now twisted into something ugly, used against me, it hurt my heart in ways the slap never did. Mr. Pembroke flipped to another page. "There's more." I made myself look. "Recommend son manage all decisions due to mother's unstable mind." It was written in neat handwriting, checked off and signed. My shame had been written down, approved, filed away like normal paperwork. I leaned back in the chair, pressing my hand against my chest. The hurt was deep, slow burning, exact. A different kind of betrayal, one that didn't yell, but whispered behind closed doors. "Unstable mind," I said quietly, tasting the words like poison. "Oliver knows I've never been sick a day in my life." Mr. Pembroke nodded. "He took what was true, that you were grieving, and twisted it into a weakness he could use legally." I closed my eyes for a second. Grief made me slow, not stupid, not crazy. But Oliver didn't draw that line carefully. He erased it completely when it helped him. "When did he send these in?" "Yes." Mr. Pembroke pointed at the date. "Right there, 2 weeks after William's funeral." When I could barely stand without holding onto walls, something inside me got hard, clear, steady, controlled. It wasn't anger anymore. It was seeing clearly, understanding that everything I doubted, everything I pushed aside as just marriage problems, had been part of something much deeper in my son. "Mrs. Thornton," Mr. Pembroke said softly, "I need you to understand what he did wasn't a mistake. It was on purpose." My lips pressed together. "He used my grief like a weapon." "Yes," Mr. Pembroke said. "And not a small one." He gathered the papers into a neat pile, tapping the edges before looking back up at me. "This changes everything. Please like and subscribe. The courtroom confrontation is coming." The courthouse smelled like old paper and cold floors, two smells that always seem to settle deep in your chest. I walked beside Mr. Pembroke, my fingers holding my handbag strap so hard my knuckles turned white. I told myself I was ready. I told myself I was strong. But the truth was simple. No mother walks into a courtroom against her own child without shaking somewhere deep down. Oliver was already sitting with his solicitor when we walked in. He didn't turn around, not once. His shoulders hunched forward, his jaw tight. His fingers tapping on his leg like he couldn't decide whether to stay or run. It was the first time I'd seen him look unsure, not bold, not confident, just nervous. I took my seat behind Mr. Pembroke, swallowing against how dry my throat felt. The judge walked in. Papers shuffled, voices got quiet. Everything moved with a cold efficiency that made feelings seem out of place, like they didn't belong here. But feelings lived inside me anyway. Shaking. Mr. Pembroke stood first. Voice calm, steady. Every word he spoke was clean and exact. No drama, no yelling, just truth laid out in careful order. "Your Honor," he began. "We're here today because a grieving widow, Mrs. Margaret Thornton, was robbed of her legal rights through misuse of power of attorney. Signatures were faked, facts were twisted, and her grief was used for personal gain. Each sentence landed like a quiet hammer. Oliver shifted in his seat, stuck to the table. I watched his shoulders drop a little, like he was getting smaller inside his own body. Seeing my son like that hurt, but not more than everything he'd done. Mr. Pembroke continued, putting copies of the fake signatures on the judge's desk. These papers, he tapped them lightly, don't match Mrs. Thornton's handwriting in any way. We have bank records showing transfers she didn't approve. We have timelines that line up exactly with the week she was emotionally broken after her husband died. Oliver's solicitor objected once, claiming it was just circumstances, but even he sounded like he didn't believe it. There are lies that stand tall and lies that fall under their own weight. Oliver's were the falling kind. Then Mr. Pembroke stepped aside, calling for the witness we prepared. Mrs. Hodgson, the neighbor from down the street, stood slowly and walked to the stand, a kind woman with soft eyes and a voice that always sounded like she just left choir practice. She fixed her glasses and cleared her throat. "I'm not here to lie about anybody," she said plainly. "But I heard things that didn't sit right." My heart pounded as she spoke. I heard his wife screaming at her, calling her names I won't say in court. I saw her sitting on the porch crying after fights. She looked right at the judge. And I watched that good woman get smaller and sadder every month. She wasn't confused. She was being treated badly. Oliver's head dropped lower. He pressed his fingers against his nose, breathing hard. Guilt sat on him like a heavy blanket. I sat perfectly still, only shaking on the inside. The judge listened without showing feelings, but his eyes moved from the papers to Oliver twice, and then he leaned back, folded his hands, and let out a breath like all the pieces finally fit together. Mr. Pembroke came forward again, voice steady. "Your Honor, we ask for immediate return of the property whilst this gets investigated fully." Silence stretched across the room like everyone holding their breath at once. The judge tapped his pen twice, looked straight at Oliver, then at me, and spoke with the weight of a decision. "Effective right now, the house is returned to Mrs. Thornton whilst we look into this further." The words rang like a bell in my chest. Oliver's head snapped up, his face pale. My fingers tightened around my handbag, but this time not from fear. The courtroom didn't bow to tears. It bowed to truth. Like and subscribe if you believe in justice. The key felt heavier than I remembered. It sat in my hand like a piece of metal from another life. A life where my name meant something inside my own walls. I stood at the front door for a long time, breathing in the faint smell of dust and old memories. The porch boards creaked under my feet, saying hello like an old friend who wasn't sure if I'd come back angry or broken. When I finally turned the key and pushed the door open, a heavy, quiet stillness moved through the house. Not peace yet, just silence. The first kind that didn't come from being ignored. A silence that asked me to step inside. I moved slowly, my hand touching the wall the way you pet a hurt animal. Gentle, careful, remembering both love and pain. The cool paint met my fingers first, then the grooves in the wood underneath. I painted this hallway myself. 2 coats, singing old hymns whilst William brought me cold tea. Every inch of this place held a memory, a moment, a version of me. But memories don't protect you from what you've been through. I walked farther in. Step careful. Nothing in this house hit me or lied about me. Yet somehow it shared the bruises. My eyes moved over the kitchen table where I used to fold towels. The doorway where Oliver once surprised me with flowers on my birthday. The living room carpet where Fiona would walk past me like I was an old chair nobody wanted anymore. A knot formed in my chest. Not victory, not triumph, but grief so quiet it felt like a whisper under my ribs. I touched the arm of the sofa, fingers trailing over the fabric. "I'm home," I said softly, not sure if I was telling the walls or myself. The house still smelled faintly of her perfume. Floral, flowery, the kind that tries too hard to hide something underneath. I walked toward the stairs, feeling the air shift like the house was remembering me. Halfway up something caught my eye. A journal left carelessly on the small shelf by the stairs. Its cover was familiar, purple with silver words that said, Private thoughts. I stopped before picking it up. My thumb ran along the edge. I shouldn't look at this, I thought. But then I remembered the slaps, the lies, being thrown out like rubbish, the years of quiet pain. Opened it. The first page was normal, lists of things to buy, reminders, appointments, but the second page changed everything. In messy handwriting circled twice, she'd written, "Need to get her out. She's in the way. In the way." The words hit harder than those slaps ever did. On the next line, "Oliver won't do it himself. Need to push harder." The page went blurry for a second. I blinked fast, letting the air settle around me. I turned another page. More notes, some crossed out, some underlined. "She doesn't help. She makes the house feel old. Oliver needs to focus on our future." And then circled in angry strokes. "Once she's gone, everything becomes ours." My breath left me in a slow, shaky sigh. Not heartbreak, not anger, just deep, tired grief. Like watching someone carve your worth into tinier pieces every day until you start believing you deserve the smallness. I closed the journal gently, too gently for what I just read. My hand didn't shake this time. Stayed steady, firm, almost calm. Downstairs, the afternoon light came through the curtains, making long shadows on the floor. I reached into my handbag, pulled out my mobile, and took clear pictures of every terrible page. Then I texted them to Mr. Pembroke. 3 dots appeared almost right away as he typed. A second later, my mobile buzzed with his message. "Got it. This is big. Keep the journal somewhere safe." I closed the phone, held the journal against my chest, and let the silence sit around me once more. Then, without another word, I packed the journal and sent it straight to my solicitor. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, please like and subscribe. The morning after I sent the journal to Mr. Pembroke, my mobile started ringing before sunrise. I answered with sleep still heavy in my voice. "We're filing today," Mr. Pembroke said. "Elder abuse, emotional harm, fraud with power of attorney, and the journal. That's the proof they can't argue against." I sat on the edge of my bed, fingers holding the blanket tight. Do what needs doing. He didn't need more. By noon, things were moving, legal papers filed, notices printed, motions stamped, and on their way. There's a sound justice makes when it starts moving toward people who never saw it coming. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's a quiet, heavy rustle. Like the sound of something long overdue finally arriving. By afternoon, the consequences started walking toward them. First, it was the court clerk delivering stamped papers to Fiona's job. She was seen outside arguing with the delivery man, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. A colleague later told someone in town that she went pale when she saw what the paper said. Elder abuse, fraud, emotional harm, words that don't wash off easy. Then it happened fast. Panic makes people show their true colors. Fiona didn't run home to comfort Oliver. She didn't hold his hand or whisper, "We'll be okay." She turned on him like a trapped animal. According to the same colleague, she said, "This is your fault. You told me she wouldn't fight. You said everything was safe." Fear and blame, 2 things that break partnerships fast. By late afternoon, I heard from Mr. Pembroke again. "They're serving them now." I stood in the living room, the same room where I folded laundry, listened to mean comments, and made myself smaller to fit in a house I built. The sunlight came through the windows, warm and soft, nothing like the tension building outside. Then I heard it. Car doors, heavy footsteps, voices. I moved closer to the window. 2 police constables walked up the drive to the house Oliver thought was his to use. His to control, his to rule. Their uniforms looked almost strange against my front lawn. Symbols of power arriving, not to protect him this time, but to correct him. They knocked on the door next door, his temporary flat, the one he moved into after the court gave the house back to me. I could hear muffled sounds inside. Then the door opening slowly. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. "Are you Oliver Thornton? We're here with court papers. You're required to." The words faded as my ears buzzed with something I hadn't felt in forever. Vindication mixed with sadness. Watching my own child stand in front of constables was nothing I'd ever enjoy. But watching accountability show up, that was different. That was needed. Oliver stepped outside fully now. Hand on his head, pacing, his face red with panic. He wasn't looking at the constables. He wasn't looking at the papers. He was looking toward my house. Eyes wide, breath uneven. Fear and regret spreading across his face like spilled ink. And somewhere in the middle of that scene, Fiona appeared too, walking fast from her car, pointing at him, her voice rising. "This is on you. I didn't make you do anything. You dragged me into this disaster." The constables told her to step back, but she kept yelling. Panic makes people loud. Oliver finally said something quiet, held out his hands, and took the stack of papers. His shoulders folded in, the weight hitting him instantly. I didn't watch the rest. I stepped back from the window, letting the curtain fall softly. For a moment, the house felt too quiet, too still, like it was holding its breath with me. Then came the sound that pulled everything tight inside my chest. A single knock. Not angry, not soft, just searching. Turned slowly. My son was at my door. Please like and subscribe to see how this mother and son confrontation unfolds. I opened the door slowly, not because I was scared, but because seeing my son standing there felt too heavy to rush. Oliver looked smaller than I remembered. Shoulders bent, eyes red from panic and no sleep. His breath caught when he saw me in the doorway. "Mom, please," he whispered. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. Not yet. He was asking to come in. Chance to talk. A chance to untangle whatever was choking him inside. I stepped aside without saying anything. He walked in carefully, like he thought the floor might break under him. The house felt different with him in it. Old shadows, past memories pressed against walls that had seen both love and hurt. He looked around, guilt stitched into every move. I didn't know it would go this far," he started, his voice cracking on the last word. "I never wanted it to get this bad." I didn't answer. I sat on the sofa, hands folded neatly, waiting, letting him feel the silence that used to eat me alive when he let others speak over me. He sat across from me, elbows on his knees, hands covering his face. "Mom, I didn't read half the stuff she gave me," he said finally. "She'd hand me papers and say it's just house stuff. Sign it so we can move forward. And his voice broke. I didn't want fights at home. There it was. The confession that showed everything without excusing anything. I thought if I didn't argue she'd stop complaining," he continued. "I didn't want trouble in my marriage." I held my breath for a second, letting the words settle. Not for what they said, but for how much they weighed. "So you made trouble for your mother instead?" I asked quietly. He flinched like the sentence had sharp edges. His hands dropped to his lap. He stared at them. I wasn't thinking. I was tired. I just wanted peace. "And I didn't," I replied. "You think I didn't want peace in my own house?" The question wasn't just words. It was truth laid bare and shaking. He looked up for the first time. And what I saw wasn't pride or stubbornness. It was a man finally seeing the damage he caused. "I'm sorry, Mum," he said. "I swear I didn't understand what she was doing. I just listened. I let her talk for both of us. I let her decide everything. I didn't want to lose her." Sad, tired pain pulled through me. Years of swallowed words, quiet insults. Late night crying in a room that didn't feel like mine anymore. "You lost me instead," I said. He blinked hard. Tears rolled down unhidden. There was a small knock on the open kitchen door. A young man wearing a delivery shirt stood there. "Ma'am, you all right?" he asked gently. "You need me to wait outside till he leaves." I hadn't realized he heard our voices. I hadn't realized anyone was paying attention. But the softness in his voice, the concern. It was the first public kindness I'd gotten in a very long time. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I said. "Thank you, though." He nodded and stepped back outside, respecting my space. Oliver watched that whole thing with an empty look. "Even strangers treat you better than I did," he whispered. I didn't argue. He leaned forward, voice shaking. Mom, I'll fix it. I'll talk to the solicitor. I'll tell the court I messed everything up. No, I interrupted. His mouth shook. Listen to you, I said quietly. Now you listen to me. He nodded slowly, bracing himself. I hear you're sorry, I said. I hear your pain, your regret, your reasons. He swallowed. But I can't forgive you today. Like and subscribe to follow Margaret's healing journey. The morning after Oliver left my house crying, I woke up to sunlight sliding through the curtains like a quiet welcome. For the first time in months, I wasn't waking to someone else's footsteps, someone else's moods, someone else's rules. I woke to my own breathing, my own thoughts, my own space. I stood in the middle of my living room and looked around. Nothing was broken. Nothing was ruined. But everything felt disturbed. A house remembers disrespect, even in silence. It holds echoes of yelling and footsteps that walked over your worth. So, I picked up the cleaning cloth from the kitchen and started with the coffee table. Each wipe felt like cleaning away more than dirt. Like brushing off pieces of every moment I was talked over. Looked through. Dismissed. The house survived. And so did I. It was time to bring both of us back. Fresh air came in as I opened windows room by room. Curtains moved. The smell of outside folded into the walls. Light spread through corners that had been dark too long. I moved slowly on purpose, straightening picture frames, putting my Bible back next to the lamp, fixing the cushions the way I always liked them, bringing William's framed photo back to the shelf. Entered. Respected. Welcome home, I whispered to myself. As I was wiping the hallway shelf, I heard footsteps outside. Then a familiar voice called from the porch. Miss Margaret, you back in the house for good? I opened the door to see Mr. and Mrs. Fletcher standing there, hands full of cleaning supplies. 2 young kids behind them holding a broom and dustpan. The sight alone filled my chest with warmth. We came to help you clean up, Mrs. Fletcher said, stepping closer. We're happy you're back. Their kindness hit me deeper than I expected. For months, I walked past neighbors with my head down, hiding my shame. Now they were on my porch, uninvited but welcome, offering help instead of whispers. Inside, the kids swept the floors whilst Mr. Fletcher fixed loose screws on the kitchen drawers. You don't have to do this, I said softly. We want to, he replied. It's good to have your light back in this house. His words soaked into me like warm tea. People had seen more than I knew. People noticed when my joy left long before I could admit it to myself. As we cleaned, Mrs. Fletcher hummed an old church song, one that used to play on Sunday mornings when William and I opened the windows and let the smell of bacon fill the house. The tune wrapped around me like a memory I thought I'd lost. By afternoon, the house had changed, not through big fixes, but through small loving touches. Every corner felt more like me, more like home. When the Fletchers left, they hugged me tight. If you need anything, Mrs. Fletcher whispered, ring us. I nodded, trying not to let tears fall. The house settled into a peaceful stillness after they left. A stillness that didn't silence me, but held me. I walked back into the living room and sat on the sofa, letting the quiet wrap around me. I wasn't the same woman who walked out of this house with only a handbag and wounded pride. I wasn't the woman who kept shrinking to avoid fights. I was rebuilding not just walls or furniture, but every part of myself they tried to break. A soft knock broke the silence. I stood expecting a neighbor with extra supplies. Maybe the kids returning something. But when I opened the door, it wasn't a neighbor. It was Mr. Pembroke. Suit neat, face unreadable, a large envelope in his hand, sealed with the bank's mark. Margaret, he said gently. This just arrived. He held it out to me. The envelope felt heavier than paper should in my hands. Please like and subscribe. Something beautiful is about to be revealed. I carried the envelope to the kitchen table like it was something breakable, something alive. Mr. Pembroke had already left, giving me space. The house was quiet again. But this silence felt different, waiting, watching. I slid my thumb under the seal and opened it slowly. Inside was one folded page, worn around the edges, the paper soft from time. My breath stopped when I saw the handwriting. William's handwriting. The room tilted just a little. I sat down fast, putting the letter flat on the table before opening it. His writing was steady, the way it always looked when he wanted his words to count. My dear Margaret. My heart squeezed. If you're reading this, life took a turn I prayed it wouldn't. You've always had a soft heart, and soft hearts can be misunderstood. I worry, love, not about you surviving. You're stronger than anyone sees. I worry about you being silenced. A tear fell before I could stop it. Hit the page, spreading into the paper. I pressed my fingers to the edge of the letter, holding myself steady. You love deeply, and sometimes people mistake that kind of love for weakness. If the day comes when someone tries to make you feel small or pushes your voice into a corner, I want you to remember this. Your pain is real. Your worth is real. And you don't owe silence to anyone. The words blurred again. He saw this coming. Not the details, not the betrayal, but the chance of weakness, the chance that kindness could be used against me. I left you everything I could. Not because I didn't trust our son, but because I wanted to make sure you had something with your name on it, something nobody could take unless you let them. Promise me you'll fight if you have to. Promise me you'll speak when it matters. Covered my mouth. The sob escaping before I could hold it. Not sadness. This wasn't just grief. It was the ache of being loved truly, carefully, protectively. The ache of knowing someone thought ahead for you, even when you weren't thinking for yourself. It is yours always, William. For a long moment I couldn't breathe. The kitchen disappeared. The house disappeared. All that existed was the sound of my heartbeat and the warmth of knowing William was still protecting me, even from a place he could never return from. Through tears, I stood and carried the letter to the living room. I placed it next to his framed photo on the shelf. My hand stayed on the glass. Thank you, I whispered, for seeing me, for protecting me even after you left. The sun shifted, casting a soft light on his picture, almost like he heard me. I stepped back, wiping my face with slow, careful movements. I felt cleaner inside, stronger. Not because of the money, not because of the house, but because I'd been reminded of a love that never belittled me, never silenced me, never made me feel like a burden. As I sat on the sofa, the quiet pressed around me again. Not heavy, not empty, just thoughtful. My eyes moved toward the doorway. The same doorway Oliver used to run through as a child. Arms wide, face bright, yelling, "Mom!" There was a time when he hugged me without thinking twice, without shame. Without someone else's voice in his head. I swallowed hard, the memory sharp enough to sting. I wasn't ready to forgive him, but I was ready for something else. Truth, real talk. Not an apology soaked in panic. Not excuses shaped by fear. A moment where he stood in front of me as his own man. I reached for my mobile. My thumbs hovered over the screen for a second before I typed slowly, carefully. Meet me tomorrow. Lone. I hit send. Like and subscribe to see how this story ends. The next morning, the sky hung low with soft clouds. The kind that promised neither rain nor sun, just quiet. I chose the small park on Riverside, the one with old wooden benches and tall trees that sway like they're listening. It was neutral ground, a place where memories didn't shout but whispered. I got there early, holding a cup of tea with both hands to keep steady. I wasn't nervous. I was preparing. There's a difference. Preparing means you know what has to be done. When Oliver finally showed up at the far end of the path, I knew it was him by how he walked, shoulders low, steps slow, like his body carried more sorry than he had words for. He stopped a few feet away, breath shaky. "Mom," he said quietly. I nodded toward the bench. "Sit." He obeyed right away. Hands pressed together between his knees. Staring down like the ground was the only thing willing to look at him. I sat next to him, leaving space between us. Not from anger but clarity. Some distances tell the truth better than words. For a long time neither of us spoke. The wind rustled through the trees. A little boy in the distance laughed loud, chasing a kite that dipped just out of reach. His joy carried across the park, pure and bright, touching the edges of my heart with a memory. A small boy with scraped knees running into my arms after school, yelling, "Mom, look at me." That boy felt far away, but not gone. Oliver finally let out a breath. "I messed up." His voice cracked. "I messed up so bad." I didn't soften. "Not this time." "Yes, you did." He swallowed hard, nodding. "I wasn't thinking. I let her control everything. I didn't check anything. I didn't protect you. You didn't respect me," I corrected gently. His eyes closed. A tear slipped out, running down his cheek. "I know." I turned a little to face him. "Do you know why I fought back?" He stopped. "Because the house was yours." "No," I said. "I fought because of the slaps. Because of the lies. Because when I needed you to stand next to me, you stood behind her." He covered his mouth with one hand, shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry, Mum. I'm so sorry." This time I let the silence sit. Let the weight of everything he did fill the space between us. Forgiveness isn't a switch. And doors don't open until the truth is fully told. After a long moment I said quietly, "I'm not here to punish you the way you might think." He looked up, confused. "I'm not here to yell," I added. "Or curse you or tear you down." His eyes softened, tiny bit of hope. "But I am here to set rules," I said. "My rules." He straightened. "Listening. You will earn your way back into my life," I said calmly. "Not by rushing, not by crying, but by choosing differently every day, every moment, by showing up, by proving you understand what you broke." His breath caught. "I'll do whatever you need. I promise." A gentle breeze passed by, as if carrying away the heaviness. The child nearby laughed again, the kite spinning in the air, life moving forward. I stood slowly. Oliver rose too, wiping his face with his sleeve. "Mum, will you ever forgive me completely?" he whispered. I stepped closer, laying a hand on his shoulder. Not close enough to comfort, but close enough to guide. "That depends on the man you choose to be," I said. He nodded. Understanding. I turned toward the path home, feeling taller, steadier. As I walked away, the truth settled peacefully inside me. He took my house for a moment, but he could never take the woman who built it. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching Margaret's journey to justice and healing.